Hey Gurias, I'm finally back on air. You missed me? I miss you guys too. And if you're new, welcome. I'm your host Alexis, and this is Lex Gurias Podcast. And today we're going to close out the true crime and mystery series with a case that I believe needs more attention than what it's getting. Due to the overwhelming evidence and the person of interest is still out there living her life, while the mother of the child is grieving and still searching for answers and still hoping to find her son, as well as continue to advocate for him, as well as continue to tell his story and never be forgotten. So, today we are going to discuss about a case involving a 7-year-old boy named Kyron Horman, who was last seen on June 4, 2010 at Skyline Elementary. Here are the timelines of events that morning of where he was last seen and the person who was last with him. At 8 a.m., Kyron and Terri arrived at his school, his stepmom, in Kane's truck, where at 8:15 they are seen in front of Kyron's exhibit. At 8:45 a.m., Terri watches Kyron walk towards his classroom before she leaves the school without Kyron's science project, which would have left a gap in between, I would say, 8:45 to 9 a.m. And at this time, students remember seeing Kyron south entrance of the school at 9 a.m. This would be the last time anyone's seen him alive. Mind you, the school doesn't start class until 10 a.m., but Kyron never shows up to his first class where his homeroom teacher, Christina Porter, marks him absent. Even though Terri watched him walk towards his classroom, she never says go in, she says towards. So now we're seeing some gaps once more at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And around this time, Terri is seen leaving the school without his science project, which was the whole purpose of her borrowing Kane's car because his science project presentation didn't start until 1 p.m. As well as to run some errands in between 10:10 to 11:39. These two errands include grocery shopping and driving her daughter around in the truck to help with the pain of her ear infection until the medicine kicks in. At 11:39 a.m., she's seen going to a 24-hour gym where she stays there until 12:40 p.m. And then later on that day, she posts a photo of Kyron with his science project on Facebook at 1:29 p.m. And this is where I believe things become suspicious because his science project started at 1 p.m., but you're not there and he's not there, and you posted like you're both present. So that's where I find it suspicious because she knows he's not there and the school knows he's not there. So at 3:30 p.m., Terri and Kyron's father meets to go to the school and finds out that Kyron hasn't been at school the whole day. But he's just finding out. But she's known that because the reason nobody notified the parents or anybody about his absence was because she told the school that he wasn't feeling well. And his mom said that was a lie because she spoke to him and he sounded perfectly fine and he was excited about showing his presentation. So she knew that was a lie. And this would start with many other lies in this case. After discovering the school secretary, Susan Hill called 911 to report him missing. Police arrived to the scene 45 minutes later. At 5:30 p.m., Portland Public Schools sends out an alert to parents that Kyron Horman did not arrive at home today. At 7:45 p.m., sheriff alerted the FBI of his disappearance. And between 8:09 to 10:45 p.m., search and rescue operation began at the school and the tunnel near the school. And the reason for the tunnel was that because there was a unknown 911 call to look at the tunnel, and I do not think that they found anything from what I read upon and what I've heard, but they had a suspicious caller call saying to look at the tunnel about this missing boy, as well as some misled information about him being found and being dead. That right there is a lie. He is missing from that day to now. So any information about him being found is false. So the search continues the following day, and parents of the children, as well as the staff, were told to come to the briefing on Sunday who were at Skyline that day. And FBI and National Guards have joined the search. So, mind you, this was like the biggest search in Oregon. And this is where it becomes more than a missing person case. On June 13, Kyron's case transitions from a missing persons case to a criminal case, which to me tells me that they know something, but they don't want to ruin the investigation like most cases. At the same time, this investigation started with the parents being the person of interest until they were cleared, and everyone who or may not be involved. So this includes Kyron's biological parents taking a polygraph test as well as being interrogated about where they were at and, basic question. And they both passed, while Terri, on the other hand, did the same thing but failed two occasion times twice, and each time involved the questions about Kyron. And at that point, she refused to speak to them or do any more polygraph tests because of the fact that she felt nervous or scared. But then I feel like if you don't have anything to hide, you shouldn't feel that way. You know what I mean? Like, yes, interrogations, from what I've seen on YouTube videos of actual like interrogating, it's intimidating. So I can understand why a person will feel uneasy, but you had to answer questions to clear you out. Otherwise, you're going to be labeled as something, which in a way, that's where all this came about. And what's crazy to me was that she actually went on Dr. Phil and she was able to speak to the public and claims that the officers told her not to tell the truth to the media, which doesn't sound like what an investigator or a police official would tell you to do. They would normally tell you not to speak because they don't want you to allow whoever is involved to know what they know and interrupt the investigation. And like myself, Dr. Phil also mentioned, I never heard law enforcement or official tell you to lie, which doesn't make sense. And she also mentioned about her whereabouts of how they told her to go to the grocery store and the gym, which was the two errands and places that she went to after she left the school. But each spot, there's a lot of gaps in her story, and there are phone pings at different times and different locations. So she's like kind of like all over during that time period that we mentioned. And while the ongoing search and investigation is going on, a split between the father of Kyron and Terri happens. During this time, a court order issues to Terri a protection order from Kyron's father, after filing for a divorce and gaining full custody of their daughter, who they shared together, and is only allowed to talk to her through letters and is banned from Skyline Elementary. This is where Terri's behavior speaks for themselves. After all, this June 29th, Terri's activity is suspicious. Apparently, she tried to hire the landscaper to be a hitman at the time to kill her now ex-partner, Kane's, and even try to kidnap their daughter. This is where it led to her being moved out by the court, as well as all the court parents at the same time, and even having strict supervision while visiting her daughter. Another person who was involved with Terri that police were looking hard at was Terri's friend Dee Spicer, whose whereabouts are unaccountable during the 3-hour period the day Kyron went missing. But she did admit to law enforcement after getting immunity that she helped Terri get an untraceable phone after she moved out of Kane's. And that's where you kind of like put two and two together and say, well, why does she need an untraceable phone? And why are you, only spilling some of the beans and not all of them, essentially? Because now that Terri has immunity, and those that watch true crime cases or investigators or interrogation, when someone has immunity, that essentially allows a person to tell whatever they know about something or someone that may be involved that they're looking at. And they essentially give them like clues and hints of like, hey, this person did this, but they can't charge that person with the same charges that they were going to charge originally for both people that were involved. So if they find evidence that she's involved, and they find evidence that Terri was involved, both of them could get charged, but she might not be charged with the same charges that Terri and her were originally charged for if they found them as potential suspects. So that's where the immunity comes in. And if they do find evidence, it makes it harder for them to go after Dee Dee, because of the fact that now that she has immunity for, maybe, I don't know how the immunity terms go about in regards of a criminal case, but it's really hard for someone to undo that. So she also goes on to the media, Dee Dee, about how her friend is going through a lot. But everyone, like myself, would ask, if she's so innocent, why would she not come clean about everything? And why can't she remember the smallest details of what happened? Because at the end of the day, this is a young boy, now man, has been missing, and she was the last person to be with him under her care. And his biological mother has been through more horror than anything, because it's different when your child is missing and you don't know where they are, if they're okay, if they're alive, if they're dead, if they suffered. Those questions spiral to the point where it just burdens you. It burns your heart, essentially. Versus you have a criminal case and you know what happened and you have all the answers, but you're just grieving. This mom doesn't know anything about where her child's at. And the fact being that the one person that has the answers is kind of refusing to speak about it, but is speaking out about her actions, about what everybody's questioning about her. She's so open about that, but why can't you just come clean about what you know and what happened that day? Because at the end of the day, it's just kind of like a lot. And the encounter between the two, Terri, for one's behavior towards her, is gut wrenching. During the searches were going on, the police were looking at it as a criminal case. This is where the time Desiree, Kyron's mom, made many good points of how this woman shows no empathy or emotions towards her child being missing. And we know people grieve differently and handle certain situations differently, because we're not them, and they both have different personalities. But the strange behavior and comments point another image. For one, there was one time Desiree went to look for her son while the searches were going on her own time, where he was last or at the surrounding areas. And Terri asked, "What are you doing here?" She said, "I'm looking for my son." Like, why are you asking a mom what she's doing, knowing that she's taking each and every day and every moment to go back where her son was last seen, under your care, mind you, and you have the nerve to tell her and ask her, "What are you doing?" Another odd moment during where they were together and they were at a press conference on the news outlet with law enforcement, and she told her she loved her son in past tense. And this stuck with her, because at that moment she knew more than what she was letting out. So we have two people who are obviously suspicious, but no evidence has been enough for either of them to go to trial. And for one, Terri's friend has immunity now, which makes it difficult for her to get charged at the same charges if the charges come about when the evidence comes to light. And anybody that knows about these two individuals or knows something about them, what transpired that day, the truth will be out, and hopefully justice will come for Kyron and his family. And now that the city has elected a new district attorney, that will be sworn in January 2025. Hopefully, fresh eyes look at the details that seem off and get more answers and find potential leads as Right now, nobody has been charged for his disappearance and nobody has been labeled as a suspect. And the search continues, but has narrowed down since the time of his disappearance. And today, Kyron would have been 22 years old and has remained a missing person. And anyone with information about Kyron's disappearance, please contact the county sheriff by 503-823-333. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you have any cases that are out there that you would like me to cover, comment below for next season coming to you soon. Don't forget to share, follow, subscribe, and support the podcast. For now, bye.